we both went to Baylor College of Medicine in Houston. And then during that time, I did our rotations. And the one thing I thought I did not want to do was obstetrics. So I did it first, and it was my favorite thing. I never liked anything as much as I liked that. It was the best. Just delivering babies and being on the labor floor and the action of obstetrics. You do a little surgery, you do a little medicine. It's all very exciting, very fun. So I went into an OBGYN residency, which we did in Pittsburgh at McGee Women's. And so during that time, I knew the only thing I didn't want to do was high-risk OB. And then, of course, I did that first. And I never liked anything as much because I just really enjoy the patient population I have, which are pregnant women who have some sort of complication, whether it be a pregnancy complication like multiple gestation, like twins, or high blood pressure, or a medical complication that they had before they were pregnant, like diabetes or lupus, or a fetal complication, something that is abnormal maybe in the baby's anatomy or how the baby is growing, those sorts of things. And all of those things, both the patient interactions, there's just a very rich texture to those sorts of layered interactions when you're dealing with two patients at the same time. So you have a mom and a baby, and you have to figure out who needs your help the most at this moment, and how can you best optimize how they're both going to do at the end. So that's always been really interesting, and the patient interactions are warm, and the science behind it is really interesting. So I have loved it ever since. Ever since I did it the first time, that's what I'm going to do.
I am sort of first generation in America from immigrant parents, and actually they are both physicians themselves. So my father is actually a cardiologist as well, and I obviously grew up in a home where medicine and healing the sick and trying to figure out how to take care of people was forefront. Fortunately, my parents were pretty reasonable about telling us, myself and my siblings, that, listen, we enjoy being physicians, we love it, but you're able to understand growing up that it is highly rewarding, but it requires a lot of sacrifices, and it's not the easiest path. So you really need to make a very aggressively responsible decision about what you want to do with your life. So I did do a lot of careful consideration, certainly through experiences that I had growing up and kind of volunteering in hospitals and seeing what it was like to be involved with healing the sick. I did have a sort of a natural draw to that. I was fortunate enough as the child of immigrants to grow up in a very rambunctious, multi-generational family. And so we kind of balanced the excitement of new life coming in with the challenges of struggling with people at the end of life as well. So I really had the opportunity to kind of see the entire spectrum of life, even as I grew up myself. So ultimately, moving through high school and college, I sort of came to the conclusion that I think perhaps medicine is for me. So I decided it would be great if I had the opportunity to be able to study and go into medical school, which worked out great. So then once I got there, again, it was another conversation with my family of, listen, this is what we do. And, you've been able to firsthand witness the great and challenging aspects. So you really need to go into it with an open mind. So ultimately, I guess for me, cardiology worked out great because it really offers an entire breadth of options. On a daily basis, I may do things as sort of low risk as seeing patients in the clinic or reading imaging studies, looking at various non-invasive testing results, or on the other side of the spectrum as an interventional cardiologist, sometimes I'm called in emergently in an immediate sense to come in, take care of someone who's having a heart attack, and either is going to live or die based on what we as a team can do in the next 90 minutes. So it gives me a great opportunity to kind of experience the entire spectrum of medicine.
I'm from a very small town in Ohio. We always joke that he's probably the first Indian I'd ever met. He's very handsome. So that was our journey. And then we sort of dated through college, and then we kind of had to make a decision about how serious we're going to be because he was a year ahead of me. He's always been a year ahead of me. So he had already gone to Baylor College of Medicine. So that year, I think we spent apart where I was still in college in Atlanta and he was in medical school.
We didn't spend it much apart, I guess.
Well, right. He actually came to see me every single weekend, which was very nice. There was airfare that you could get if you stood by as a college kid. That was like $50 or something. So he did it
a lot,
basically most of my senior year, even though you were a med student. So then I ultimately got into Baylor, and then we moved here. And
The rest is history.
The rest is history. Yeah.
Ours is the very classic Eastern world, Western world kind of thing, where I think she had been raised in a culture and a family that very much encouraged, if you find love, you should pursue love, don't let it go, realize that it's most important. And I grew up in a very kind of Eastern family where we put an emphasis on practicality and education and not thinking about maybe what you want today, but what do you want for your children one generation from now. And so coming from that background and growing up in America, there was a lot of competing forces, I guess, for how was I going to make choices, how was I going to live my life. And so I think ultimately being able to stop being so maybe intellectual and analytical about it and just kind of going with my heart.
He's just an incredibly kind soul. He's from the moment we met, he's been the kindest, nicest person I've ever met. He truly loves his family, he loves his children, mostly, loves everyone else in the family. We have big extended families that all live here now in the Woodlands.
I have known her for actually at this point the majority of my life, and I've never seen her interact with a human being where she has not first and foremost tried to figure out how they can be best helped and then base all other decisions around how that can move forward. And I've never met anyone like that.